The ring was on the wrong hand. I noticed it the moment she walked into the room. Before she sat down. Before she opened her mouth. Before she placed one hand on her pregnant belly and smiled at me across a conference table, in the way you smile at someone you have already decided does not matter. My stepsister Maya was wearing the ring my late mother-in-law had worn for 40 years, an oval ruby in an antique gold setting, the kind of ring that has a history behind it, the kind you feel when you touch it, the kind that remembers every woman who ever wore it. She had it on her right hand, not her left, because she knew I would look at her left hand first. Across the table, my soon-to-be ex-husband Marcus sat with his eyes on the carpet. He had not looked at me once since I walked in. Beside me, my attorney Diane pressed her palm flat on a manila folder and said nothing. The mediator cleared his throat. "Shall we open?" I said yes. What they did not know, what none of them knew, was that I had been building that folder for 4 months, and everything I needed was already inside it. If your family has ever treated your silence like permission, drop a comment right now. I want to know your city. I want to know these words are reaching you wherever you are. Stay with me, because what I am about to tell you is going to take some time, and it is worth every second. Marcus Reed and I met in 2018 at a work conference in Nashville. I was a logistics director for a regional hotel group. He was the founder of a small interior architecture firm that was just starting to pull serious contracts. We were both at a panel on creative enterprise. He asked a question from the audience that was smarter than anything the panel had said all morning. I told him so afterward at the coffee station. He laughed. He said, "You're the first person today who hasn't tried to sell me something." We dated long distance for 11 months. We moved in together in March of 2019. We were married the following October, in a small outdoor ceremony in the Smoky Mountains, with 42 people and one empty chair, where my mother would have sat if she had not died 3 years earlier. Marcus's grandmother, Rose, pressed my hands at the reception and said, "She would have loved you, baby." She meant my mother. Rose had known her. They had moved in the same church circles in the 1990s. It was Rose who gave Marcus the ring. A 1930s oval ruby, yellow gold filigree, worn first by his great-grandmother in Georgia and then by Rose herself for 4 decades. She gave it to Marcus 3 days before our wedding. She said, "This goes to the woman he builds something real with." He slid it onto my right hand at the altar, a gift from his family to mine, the way some families still do. I wore it every day for 6 years. I no longer have it. My stepsister Maya came into our lives through the back door, the way she always did. She was 24 when she moved to our city in the spring of 2022. My stepmother Renata told me Maya needed to get out of Charlotte. New start, fresh air, family nearby. I was 32. Marcus and I had been trying to start a family for a year. I was grateful for the company. I want to be honest about this part, because I think some of you will recognize it. I liked having Maya around at first. She was funny. She remembered small things. The way you take your coffee, the name of the co-worker who gave you a hard week. She asked questions about my mother. She seemed genuinely interested in who I was before the marriage, before the job, before everything. I thought that was love. I did not understand yet that she was doing research. In August of 2022, I had my first miscarriage at 9 weeks. Marcus was steady. He sat with me in the hospital room and held my hand and did not try to fill the silence with words. That night, Maya came over with groceries and stayed until midnight, and I remember thinking she was the kind of sister I had always wanted. I lost a second pregnancy in the spring of 2023, further along this time. 13 weeks, Marcus was in Chicago for a project when I started bleeding. He booked the first flight back. He did not make it in time. When he arrived at the hospital, I had already been discharged. Maya was in the parking lot, sitting on the hood of her car, waiting. I thought she was there for me. She was. But she was also watching Marcus walk across that parking lot. The way his shoulders looked when he was guilty. The way he reached for me when he did not know what to say. She was watching him, the way you study a lock before you pick it. I did not see this then. I see it now, clearly, the way you see a shape in a photograph that you missed entirely the first time you looked. In November of 2023, Marcus told me he needed space. Not those exact words. He used other words: clarity, perspective, separate time, but what he meant was that he had already left and was waiting to tell me. I knew it the way you know something before you are ready to say it out loud. By January, we were legally separated. I moved into a rental on the west side of the city. I took the clothes, the books, the coffee maker, and the wooden box my mother had left me when she died. That box had 3 things inside it: a photograph, a letter, and a small paper envelope she had sealed with her own hands. The envelope had my name on it in her writing. She had told me to open it when I most needed to hear her voice. I put the box on the nightstand and did not open the envelope. In February, Maya posted a photograph on Instagram. Her left hand, a restaurant table, a ring I recognized immediately, an oval ruby, yellow gold filigree, worn by a woman in Georgia in the 1930s. The caption said, "He chose right this time." 12,000 likes in under 4 hours. I sat on the floor of my rental apartment for a long time. Then I picked up my phone. Not to call Marcus. Not to call Maya. I called my friend Dana, who had known me since college, who had been my maid of honor, and who had a very specific tone of voice she used when she needed to tell me something I was not going to like hearing. She answered on the second ring. "I saw it," she said before I could speak. "How long?" I asked. A pause. I started noticing things around July. I didn't know for sure. "July," I said. July was the month I had started IVF. Maya had been at the clinic with me for the first appointment because Marcus had a site visit he could not move. She had held my hand through the intake paperwork. She had been in the waiting room when I came out. Dana said, "There's something else. Zoe, I have to ask you something and I need you to not hang up." I did not hang up. "Is Maya actually pregnant?" "I want to tell you something about grief that no one says out loud. There is a version of grief that feels like fog. You move through it slowly and you cannot see the edges of things. And there is another version that feels like clarity. Sharp and cold and very, very still. Like the morning after a storm, when the air is clean and you can suddenly see exactly how far it is to the tree line. I entered the second kind of grief, around 2 in the morning on the night I started digging. Dana's question stayed in my head. Not because I thought it was impossible, because I realized I had no actual evidence that Maya was pregnant beyond her word and her photographs. I went back through 6 weeks of her Instagram. I looked at every post in order. The belly grew. Then it was smaller. Then larger again. One photograph, a gym mirror selfie from a Thursday afternoon, showed her midsection completely flat under a cropped sweatshirt. She had deleted it within 3 hours, but Dana had screenshot it before it disappeared. I zoomed in on the ultrasound she had posted in October. It was blurry around the patient information in the lower right corner. Blurred not by image quality, but by something applied on top of the original. The kind of blur you get from the smudge tool in a photo app. I screenshot it. I enlarged the corners one at a time. In the bottom left, behind the blur, a date stamp that did not match any possible pregnancy timeline she had announced. The date read April 2021. I checked my own calendar. In April of 2021, Maya had done a sponsored wellness campaign for a women's health clinic in Charlotte. I remembered because she had called me while I was at work to tell me she had been offered the campaign. She had sent me a selfie from the clinic that afternoon. She had texted, "They did a scan as part of the package. Look, I have a uterus. Who knew?" She had used that scan. 2.5 years later, to announce a pregnancy that did not exist. I sat on my kitchen floor with my laptop open and felt the world reorganize itself around a single cold fact. My stepsister was not pregnant. She had never been pregnant, and someone had helped her set this up. I called my attorney Diane at 7 in the morning. Diane Vasquez had been a family and property litigator for 19 years. She had an office that smelled like old paper and fresh coffee, and she had the kind of eyes that did not move around when you were talking. She listened to you completely, the way a doctor listens before they say anything. I talked for an hour. She asked 4 questions total. When I finished, she said, "Tell me about the ring. Whose family did it come from originally?" I told her about Rose. About the great-grandmother. About the ceremony. Diane wrote 2 lines on a yellow pad. She turned it around so I could read it. Ring provenance. Grandmother still living? Rose was 81 years old, and living in Augusta. I said yes. Diane clicked her pen. This is not a simple affair, Ellie. Someone chose the ring as a target. That tells me someone knew its value before Marcus did. She looked at me over the pad. How long has your stepmother known Marcus's family? My stepmother Renata had come into my father's life in 2006 when I was 16. She was warm in the way some people are warm as a skill. She remembered birthdays. She made the right food for funerals. She said the right thing to the right person in the right room. She had also been at our wedding. She had been at the family dinner where Marcus first introduced me to his grandmother Rose. She had sat next to Rose for 40 minutes that evening, asking questions about the family history in the attentive way that seemed like genuine interest. I had not thought about that dinner in years. I thought about it now. My friend Dana, who worked in finance, helped me trace 3 months of Renata's bank activity using records Diane had subpoenaed as part of the property settlement. What we found was not subtle. From July through October of the previous year, Renata had sent Maya 7 payments. The memo lines said things like travel expenses and wardrobe and appointment costs. The total was just over $11,000. The first payment had gone out 6 weeks before Maya moved to our city. Renata had not sent Maya money to help with a fresh start. She had sent it to begin an operation. Dana sent me a screenshot with the message, "Your stepmother hired your stepsister. This was a job." I sat with that for a long time. Then I called Rose. Rose Reed was 81 years old, and sharp as a straight pin. Bridget, Marcus's sister, had spent 2 months carefully preparing her for this call. Rose did not need much preparation. She had been carrying something for years, and was ready to put it down. She told me that in the autumn of 2018, a woman had come to her church's autumn social in Augusta. The woman said her name was Renata, and that she had recently connected with the Reed family through mutual friends in Nashville. She was gracious. She brought food. She sat with Rose for a long time and asked questions about the family in the way people do when they are genuinely curious about where a family comes from. Rose said she had enjoyed the conversation. Near the end of it, Renata had asked, "Do you have anything from the family you've thought about who it should go to? An heirloom, something like that. You must have strong feelings about that." Rose said she had told her about the ring. Renata had said, "It sounds like it deserves to go to someone who really belongs in this family. Not just by paperwork, you know? Real belonging." Rose paused on the phone. Then she said, "I did not think much of it at the time. I had met Marcus and you by then. Ellie, I knew you were the right one, but she planted a seed. 2 years later, when things between you and Marcus started to look troubled, I second-guessed myself. I thought maybe I had been wrong about you." She was quiet for a moment. She knew what she was doing. That woman came to my church to change my mind about a ring she had been planning to take for 2 years. I asked if she would write that down. She said, "I already have. Bridget has it. I also had the church secretary pull the sign-in sheet from that social. There is a name and a Charlotte phone number on it. I have been keeping it in my Bible." 3 weeks before the settlement, Renata called and asked if I would come to dinner. She said she wanted things to be peaceful. She said she was praying for everyone involved. I went. I want to be clear that I went because Diane told me to. She said, "Ellie, let them think you are still the soft one. We are 2 weeks out. Let them feel comfortable." I went. I ate chicken and rice at a table with my father, who studied his water glass, my stepsister, who rubbed her prosthetic belly with one hand and talked too loudly, and Renata, who smiled at everyone with the warmth of a woman who believes she has already won. At the end of the evening, Renata pressed a large container of food into my arms. "Take the leftovers," she said. "I made extra." I thanked her. I drove 6 blocks and pulled into a gas station parking lot. I sat there for a moment. Then I opened the container. Under the food, under a square of wax paper placed to absorb the grease, a folded receipt. I opened it. Soft Life Prosthetic Maternity Set, weeks 20 through 28, silicone. Quantity 1. Shipping address, M. Leonard, Charlotte, North Carolina. Order date, 4 weeks before Maya had announced her pregnancy. I looked at that receipt for a long time, in the parking lot under a gas station light. Then I called Diane. I said, I have her. She said, don't move. I'm sending someone to photograph that receipt tonight. The settlement was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in April. Diane arrived before anyone. She set a single manila folder on the conference table and did not open it. Marcus arrived with Maya and Renata. My father sat apart from all of them, which I noticed. Maya had dressed for the occasion, a cream blouse, her hair done, my mother-in-law's ring on her right hand where she knew I would see it. She was good. She had practiced this. The mediator opened the session. Renata went first. She said she hoped we could all behave with maturity. She said family was complicated. She said she was praying for everyone at the table, and she hoped Ellie understood that sometimes love moves in unexpected directions, and the most gracious thing a woman can do is release what was never really hers. She placed both hands flat on the table like a woman in church. Diane let her finish. Then Diane opened the folder. The first document was a side-by-side enlargement of Maya's October ultrasound and the ultrasound from the clinic's 2021 wellness campaign. Patient number, timestamp, corner watermark, identical. Diane set it on the table without speaking. Maya said, that's a technical error. Social media does that. Diane set the second document down. The photo timeline. 17 Instagram posts plotted in order. The progression made no biological sense. In the gym selfie Dana had captured before it was deleted, Maya's stomach was completely flat. Renata said, women's bodies fluctuate. Diane set down the third document, the soft life receipt, Renata's name, Renata's billing address, the order date. The room did not move. Marcus, who had been looking at his hands, looked up. He looked at the receipt for a long time. Then he looked at Maya. Maya, he said. His voice was very quiet. Are you pregnant? She did not answer. He looked at Renata. Renata did not look up. Diane set down the fourth document. The bank transfers, $11,000, July through October, memo lines, wardrobe. Appointment costs. Then the fifth, Rose's signed statement, the church social, the conversation about the ring, the sign-in sheet with Renata's name and phone number. Marcus read it line by line. His face when he finished was not angry. It was something quieter than anger. It was the face of a man seeing a shape in a photograph for the first time and understanding that it had always been there. He turned to Renata. She made a sound I will not try to describe. A small sound, like a building settling. My father, who had been very still in his chair, said, Renata. One word. She did not answer him. The mediator asked if anyone wished to respond to the documents on the table. No one did. When it was over, I stood up. I walked around the table to where Maya sat with her hands in her lap and the ring on her right hand. I did not touch her. I did not raise my voice. I stood beside her chair until she looked at me. My mother-in-law gave that ring to a woman who builds something real, I said. I need it back. She took it off. She placed it on the table. I picked it up. I put it in my coat pocket. I looked at Marcus. He was looking at the table. I said, I hope you figure out who you actually are. He did not answer. I walked to the door. I did not slam it. I pulled it closed behind me, the way you close a door in a house where someone is sleeping. Outside, the morning air was cold and clean. I stood on the steps for a moment. I felt nothing in particular, which is its own kind of feeling, the feeling of a debt that has finally cleared. That night I went home and sat on my bed for a long time. Then I opened the wooden box. I took out the envelope my mother had left me. Inside was a single index card in her handwriting. She had written 3 sentences. The first said, You are going to go through something that feels like it is destroying you. The second said, It is not, it is just showing you what was always true. The third said, The quiet ones always know more than the loud ones think they do. Wait. I read it 4 times. Then I placed it inside the manila folder with the rest of the documents. I think about those 3 sentences still. My mother died without knowing any of the people in that conference room. She could not have predicted a single detail of what happened to me. But she knew the shape of it. She knew the shape of me. She left me a receipt in advance. Rose asked for the ring back when everything settled. I mailed it to her with a note that said it had been kept safe. She called me when it arrived and said, "This is where it belongs until I decide again. And this time I will decide better." We talk on Sundays now. Bridget, Marcus's sister, sent me a handwritten card that said simply, "I am sorry I did not see it sooner. You were always the right one." Marcus lost 2 architectural clients whose principals knew Rose personally. The firm is still running but smaller. He reached out once by text in May. I did not reply. Maya closed her Instagram account 3 days after the settlement documents were filed as part of the public court record. She moved back to Charlotte. I heard through my father that she is working in retail. I think about her sometimes with something that is not quite pity, and is not quite nothing. Renata retained a lawyer. The civil case is pending. I am not losing sleep over the outcome. What I care about is already done. My father called me in June. He said he had filed for divorce from Renata. He said he was sorry he had not seen it coming. He said he had known something was wrong for years and had chosen to let it be someone else's problem, and he understood now that it had been my problem, and that was not something a father should do. I told him I needed time. He said, "Take as much as you need." That is the most useful sentence he has ever said to me. There is a thing people say about justice. They say it is slow. I think that is only half true. Justice is slow to build. The finding, the documenting, the waiting, the sitting in parking lots under gas station lights holding a receipt you almost threw away, that part is slow, patient, unglamorous. But when it arrives, it does not take long at all. A folder, 6 documents, 45 minutes in a conference room, the ring in my coat pocket, a door closing on its own weight. What I want to say to you, if you are in the middle of it right now, if you are in the part that is slow and quiet and invisible to everyone around you, is this. Your mother knew the shape of it before it happened. Some part of you knows the shape of it too. Keep the receipts. All of them. The quiet ones always know more than the loud ones think they do. Wait.